You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this episode. With me today is a serial entrepreneur. His years and years of experience in marketing, audio, visual, firefighting. I mean, this guy has done it all before, and we're so excited to have him on today. With me is Leland Best. Leland, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Chris, how's it going? Nice
Wonderful.
to be here.
Great to have you here. Great to see you, man. It has been just a pleasure working alongside of you and sharing some of our marketing business tips and tricks over the past few months here. And I just wanted to have this opportunity to showcase you to other businesses, other entrepreneurs, to share your journey about what you're doing. But I think they'd want to know where it all started. How did you get into everything that you do today? Take me back.
Well, it goes back quite a ways. Myself being what you call a serial entrepreneur is kind of to say that I've always wanted to do things my own way. And what that means is I was an employee for several years of my life. I started off in lots of different places. I started my first job when I was 12, and that was at a shooting range known as the Bald Mountain Recreational Area in Lake Orion. And it was one of those places where I never really expected to get a job, but I showed up and I got the job, and it told me right away, hey, this could be cool. I'm making money. I'm 12 years old. So that was the start. Obviously, I worked several jobs. I went through the same rigmarole everybody else did, maybe cooking, landscaping, mowing lawns, all that kind of stuff. But I think when I got to high school, I discovered more of my talents. I knew I was good at art. I knew I was good at math. I graduated with an Accounting Student of the Year award, which I didn't even expect to get. And as a matter of fact, I still have the pen to this day. This is a cross pen that has my name on it. I don't know if you can see that. And it says Lee 1984, because that was my nickname at the time.
Nice.
And still is for a lot of people. They know me by Lee. I've had this pen for like 40 years. And I still use it. I use it almost all the time.
That's a high quality pen
and everything. It is. It's it lasted through the test of time. So when I left there, I actually started working for an accountant. I got a job as a public accountant's assistant because I had the qualifications as an accountant. And we did a lot of books for the Detroit Lions, a lot of small mom and pop businesses. Unfortunate to say, the gentleman I worked for had the birthday the same day as me. He was one of the only people that I know of that had the same birthday as myself, except for Robert Redford. And that was cool to have the same birthday as Robert Redford. But it was the fact that he passed of cancer not long after I met him, which was like a year into knowing him. He was exactly twice my age at the time. He was 38 and I was 19. He died at the age of 40 of a cancer that attacked his legs just all of a sudden, and he was gone. And I was like, man, I used to compete with like keyboarding back and forth with this guy to see who could solve math problems the fastest. Well, I left there, got over to GM in a disbursement analyst position where I was spending about $5 million of GM's money a month on design invoices for design shops, engineering design shops. And one in particular was Hotel Whiting from the UK. They sent over a chartered accountant to visit with me at my desk. Happened to be a place I met Randy Logan, who was a wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, won a Super Bowl ring back in the day. He was working for EDS post-retire. He retired from football, and I just happened to meet him like 3 desks away from me.
Wow.
So we were hanging out. That's where I met my first wife. She was running the cafeteria upstairs, and I was doing disbursements, paying out way too much money. So they didn't like that. I got in a motorcycle accident in 1985 that threw me for a loop, threw me over a Lincoln Continental. And in that process, while I was recovering, GM fired me as a contract employee because I was just like a part and parcel, check in, check out kind of employee. Well, that made me realize I've either got to get a real job, which is, find a career. And that's where it started. I went from making, like at the time, this is in the 80s, remember? I was making $750 an hour doing accounting. And the next job I took after my injury was literally running blueprints at an engineering firm for $4.10 an hour.
Wow.
That was all we could make. And so I ran blueprints, and I became what I classified myself as was a reproductions technician. I made my own business cards for the firm because they didn't have any for me. I ran several different machines. I ran this blueprint machine. I ran a layering. It was what was called a pin bar machine, where back in the time before CAD, we had to take sheets of Mylar, 24 by 36 inch sheets of Mylar, and layer them like the road, because this was a civil engineering firm. So we did road work, paving, parking lots, sewers, underground, building structures, all that kind of stuff. So you'd layer the roads and the utilities and all that. So it became a process, and I just kind of made it a thing, and we
Mhm.
used it all the time. So once I got from there, I was like, man, I want to draft. I want to draw. I want to do this stuff. I've been drawing. I like drawing. Get me on the board. So they finally got me on the board. I became a civil engineer's tech, basically a designer by trade, and moved my way up the ranks to the senior tech positions. And around 1995, a friend of mine who was an engineer in civil decided to go out on his own. And he was on his own for about 6 months. And he called me and said, dude, I need you to come help. So can you come help? Like, at that time, I'm making like $18 an hour working for an engineering firm, full benefits and everything, married. I believe I just had a child. 1994 was my first son was born. And so I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll just jump ship and come work for you. Well, how's 25 an hour to start? I'm like, sure, I'll be right over. It was kind of a no brainer. What do you do from there?
Yeah.
I think what it showed me was that there were other routes, but then I had to get serious. Now I had to open a company. I had to come up with a business name. At that time, it was Draftall Inc.
Mhm.
And it was actually Draftall, INK, period. But they wouldn't let me
Nice.
brand it that way by
Oh,
law. I couldn't do the INK period by law because it was too close to an incorporation viewpoint
wow.
for branding. So they said, nope, can't use that brand. It's like, so it was just 3 words, Draftall Inc. That brand got on a lot of documents. I did a lot of engineering for some Fortune 500 companies here in Michigan, like Bautel Whiting, Giffords Webster, several solo engineers, along with the likes of Ameritech, AT&T, and Spectrum, Brent, a few others, because I did a lot of cell tower work at the time.
Okay, nice.
And I think over the years, I did that for my own for 15 years outside of the fact that I was already in the business since 1986. So, take that forward as far as you want. I went through a couple divorces in the process. My first divorce caused me to go back to work because I couldn't uphold the support figures, honestly, to be honest with you. I needed to find solid, consistent work.
Mhm.
So I went back to working for an engineering firm in Saginaw, and they paid about what I was making back before I went on my own. And
Mhm.
so that was disgruntling. It was,
Absolutely. You get a taste of that freedom, that independence, entrepreneurship, and then you're like, man, back to the 9 to 5. It's not always the direction we want to go to, but it was what you needed to do.
that's what opened my eyes to the whole principle of working on your own and where it really takes you. Not that I didn't know it already. It was just going back to work was it was like a kick in the, what,
Mhm.
to think that I didn't give up. It wasn't like I had to give up. It was just, I was limited in my resources at the time. I didn't have much to go on, and I just needed to rebuild my resources. So
Mhm.
that gave me the opportunity to do that.
You did what you had to do for the time.
And to get back into that took me, it wasn't until I was doing okay on my own. I divorced in 2005 for my second divorce. That was because that one didn't last very long. Sorry to say. We don't need to discuss that. That's just an ugly 4 years of my life. I don't ever need to talk about it again.
Fast forward
So,
those 4 years.
yes, let's go past that. So around 2005, 2006, I decided I got on my own again, and I decided it was time to, start ramping things up and make something of it.
Mhm.
I still had the CAD business, but it wasn't really what I was intending on doing because 2008 was what made it the worst. The market crashed, housing went under, and that was our primary source of income was through housing development. That's what we
Mhm.
did. We did subdivision plats. We did, site condos. We did commercial developments, and all that stuff was just crashing hard with the mortgages going under. So we had to skate for a while on unemployment benefits, to be honest. And
Mhm.
that helped us to try and re-engineer where we were going next.
Mhm.
I got married in 2008. So it was kind of that It was a flip from everything was going terrible to, wow, I found the woman of my dreams. I'm going to get married all at the same time.
Just the highs and lows.
That helped a lot though. And, at the time I was still working as a fireman. You mentioned my fire department skills, you might say. I actually went into the fire department academy the year of 9/11. It was that August that I had signed up for the academy, not knowing what was about to happen in New York. And I think some people, that may have signed up definitely walked away right after that happened because they were like, oh, hell no, I'm not having that happen to me. But I think it gave me even more gumption to just say, no, I'm totally all in on this. So I went into the full, academy, did a lot of extra training outside of that, like wildfires, airport training. I actually learned how to burn down, 747s. That's pretty cool stuff.
Wow.
Other than that, it was a part-time type position for me anyway. I was always on call, but I was certainly on a lot of calls that changed my life, just watching, what people go through or what you see behind the scenes of a scene. We had a lot of wild scenes there. So one in particular I can mention, it was a really enlightening experience for all of us because we were called out to a vehicle under a semi is what we were told. And we were like, oh, great, this is going to be lovely. Well, we arrived on scene to see a crushed pop can of a vehicle, not under the full size and weight of a semi, but the semi was parked in front of it, which was to say it probably drove over top of the car.
Oh,
and so we're thinking this is not going to be pretty, guys. Let's get over there. And we got over there. The roof was completely collapsed into the car. And by the time one of us went to touch the vehicle, we heard, hey, can you guys get me out of here? We're like, what? He's like, yeah, I think I broke my foot. Can you guys get me out of here? Like, dude, if that's all you broke, we'll be happy to get you out of there. So
right.
Like we had to cut the roof of the vehicle off. All 4 pillars had to come out, but it was one of those scenes where you think the worst is about to happen. And yet here, out of some miracle, that the car had tried to stay, he was in the left lane and the big truck had come over into the left lane and literally crushed him up against the barrier wall and drove over top of him.
Wow.
So for someone to live from that experience, it's like, how did you do that?
Yeah. You were going in there
car.
expecting the worst. And here he is just having a great attitude about it. Like it's a broken foot. Can you get me out of here? Wow.
And he was trapped. He was trapped under the steering wheel. His foot was smashed into the firewall of the vehicle. So that's where his foot got caught. He didn't realize how bad his foot was actually injured, but it was because he couldn't feel it.
Wow.
So we had to cut him out, drag him out on a backboard and get him into the ambulance. But yeah. And, I've seen scenes of death as well in that situation, which we don't like to talk about, but it does happen. And, if you're ever considering the fire department, it's definitely something to consider if you have the constitution and the will to see that type of stuff in your life. I know guys that just walk right by it, don't think twice about it. They're career vets. They do it for their family and for their father and their grandfather and everybody else that went before them. But it's a tough crew. It really is a tough crew.
Absolutely. And it's not for everyone. It really takes someone really special, someone hardened with both, physically and mentally to be able to go into those situations and not even think twice about what they're getting themselves into. It's incredible.
We always say most people run away from burning buildings. We're the kind of guys that go run into them.
It's true, though. It's true. So you went from fighting fires literally, and I'm sure you fight fires on a daily, weekly basis from everything that you do now, from business and marketing, audio, visual. And that's only 30 years ago up until 10 years ago. You have even more experience that you got into live broadcasting.
Yeah.
Everything.
I can go on for miles, honestly. I've got so many hats in the closet over here that I pull out on a regular. Yeah, there was a little interim in there too, that when I went from Saginaw to Kalamazoo, I've been in Michigan all my life. I've never really left the state to live anywhere but Michigan. I've been primarily located in like the Oakland County, Saginaw County regions, which when you're in Michigan, this is where you live. Okay. You don't tell people or point to a map. You just point to your hand.
Yeah.
Originally, I grew up down here. Well, I was born over here. I grew up down here. I lived up here near the bay. And now I live somewhere right about here in the middle of the state between Clinton and Lansing. which is the capital. We're at the county seat, which is like the big county building with all the police, sheriff, locals, everybody's here right in our town, block away. And that's the river you see behind me is the Shiawassee River that I announce every time I do a broadcast at Best Live TV. Best Live TV was born out of a grassroots effort that started back in 2012. And it was primarily a means for me to provide solutions to live stream broadcasters or online broadcasters at the time who were learning how to hang out. Let's call it hang out on air, because it was actually a Google product that was known by that name that started it all. And that was when you had to wait a minute, a full 60 seconds at least, to get a response from the other end of the feed when you said something. If you said, hello, this is Leland Best coming to you from Best Live TV along the Shiawassee River, it would be like, check your watch, sip your coffee. Did you guys get that yet?
It's like those news broadcasts where they're like constantly,
Yes,
and then a long delay. Oh, yes, of course.
And then you start seeing the chat coming up in the feed where it's like, yeah, type a 1 if you can hear me is what it used to be. So all these ones would go flying up in the chat and you'd be like, okay, good. You can hear me. I will proceed.
It should be coming here shortly.
You never knew if the feed was actually working not right, or if the video was scratched, or if the audio was crap or anything. So it was like, you had to get a confirmation first. Now it's real time. Everything we do is now in real time live. And we premiere most of our product delivery based on live events. If you've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed the shirt that I'm wearing, this is the Pro or Professional Referees Organization. I've done only one broadcast for them, but that's at a level that is conducive to the World Soccer Organization. So this is basically next tier down of all the referees that get together and do their annual gig to go over all their playbook stuff. I've done several other events for a lot of C-level corporation stuff for medical events. I've also done, the largest event I've done was in Vienna, Austria, here remote. We had 10,000 people in attendance for that event, 400 of which had to be brought in on live feeds through Zoom. And that meant 4 of us as technical directors, which is my premier role here at Best Live TV, was to handle all of the incoming feeds of those 400 guests that were going to be walking in and out on the scene for this large medical conference. It was I believe it was a X-ray technology conference of some sort, radiologist conference. So there's a lot of radiologists in the world. Let's just put that. That was a really cool presentation. And I've done stuff for neurology departments. I got to premiere Robin's Wish, which was a movie presented by his wife recently. I had the pleasure of meeting his widow in person as the technical director on that production. So we got to sit behind the scenes and discuss how Robin passed. And if you haven't seen Robin's Wish, go take a look at that movie. It should be available publicly now. It was being presented privately for a period of time at neurology conferences for people to really understand what happened to Robin. And his Lewy body dementia is what he actually died from.
Wow.
I recommend everybody to watch that movie. It's a fantastic movie. It's a documentary based, of course. So most of my stuff revolves around that. I've been the technical director 2 years in a row, 2020 and 2021, for the Public Health Institute's both National Overdose Crisis Event and Opioid Crisis Event, which tends to have about a 500 count attendance and usually around 100 doctors, physicians, lawyers, judges. This is like the entire gamut of the health, wellness, all the law that relates to the criminal end of drug abuse, which is something, a lot of people don't understand. I can touch on the fact that I understand it fully. I was a severe closet crack addict for 3 years back about 2008, just about the time I married my third wife. So that was something that I had to come clean on a couple of years after our marriage because I wasn't ready to at the time. So I understand fully what drug addicts go through. Mm-hmm. So to be involved in that event was really like a highlight for me, to be able to give back, to some of those people that I know struggle with abuse and dealing with drug situations like that. So definitely a cool place to be. Oh yeah. To see what they were doing at the time. The doctors now realize they caused most of this crisis themselves. Mm-hmm. They were basically prescribing opioids at a rate that was phenomenally out of character, and it should have never been handled the way it was. And now they're trying to backpedal and fix the situation they created. Now, whether they'll be able to do it the way they'd like to or not is another story. But thanks to our efforts in putting forth the events that we did manage to get people like NIH and other higher institutions to come down to the public health institute level and start actually contributing to that cause. We hope that'll make a difference.
Wow, that's crazy. What a great opportunity. And just that you're willing to be so open and transparent about your past, your history, what you've gone through, how you've helped others. I mean, it's
I'm an
incredible.
open book. I never have anything to hide. It's one of those things where when you are under scrutiny through the legal system, when you go through divorce, especially, that's the discovery process of divorce is enough to make you realize people who are really, really concerned about their privacy are normally people who have a lot to hide. I hate to
Ah,
say it. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just trying to say that if you feel your privacy is in jeopardy, you're missing the mark because your privacy was jeopardized a long time ago. You
mhm.
don't have much privacy in this world anymore with the types and accounts that you have online, the social media accounts, the camera placements throughout the world. You really don't have much of that anymore. So I just tend to try to get people to let that go.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And at the rate that technology is advancing, just there's this log and history book of your life on social media, some for the goods, some for the worse. I mean, imagine imagine the embarrassing things that you post out of just an emotional spurt or anything really that, wow, that's documented and there for anybody to see now. So you're right. We don't have a lot of privacy nowadays anymore.
We have to be careful too, though,
Hmm.
because libel and slander are very, very detrimental to the person who gets caught up in it. And what I mean by that is the person who may inadvertently or accidentally post something that they felt was appropriate to their own cause and not realize that it may not have been a true fact. And if they post something derogatory about someone or their brand in that effect, and it's not true, that's a big lawsuit. That is a huge and hefty lawsuit. And we try to warn people about that all the time because what we do is very, constrained by copyright restrictions and other things like music, background music, product placements. You can't just go live anytime you want and have a Coke can sitting on the shelf behind you or any of that. And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't think about that stuff. Same with music playing in the background. I mean, your feed will get shut off in 10 seconds if you come out with, Aerosmith playing in the background feed because they just won't allow that. Now, TikTok, totally different story. They have a lot of licensing for music that's allowed in their system, that's already in their system. Why Facebook and YouTube didn't do this years ago, I don't know why,
Yeah.
because they missed the mark there. And that's why they're trying to get TikTok removed from the US. I'll tell you, I don't care what anybody says about TikTok. It is one of the fastest growing apps on the planet. It's one of the funnest apps to be on. There is no way that China, they're going to find out just as much about you logging into your Facebook page as they're going to find out about you on TikTok.
I agree.
It's what you give them. How much are you going to give them in your feed? If you
Yes.
tell them your account number for your bank, sure, they're going to use it. Don't tell them your account number.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the hypocrisy around, okay, it's not cool because TikTok is doing it, but really every day, YouTube, Google, Facebook, they're all doing the same exact thing, the data mining, the manipulative news feeds. I mean, everything that they're blaming TikTok for, they're doing themselves. But I feel like they're trying to take down TikTok because it is competition to them. And I feel like there's less censorship on TikTok as well. Like they have trouble controlling the narrative on TikTok
Well,
versus any other
actually,
platform.
the government had the same lead into TikTok as they did to Facebook and Twitter. So, and that's been proven. There were just
Really?
as many, there were just as many posts taken down from government request to TikTok as there were the same relationship that you see on Facebook and Twitter coming to the public now.
I guess that's not surprising either.
What there is an issue with TikTok is that the content that isn't being classified as misinformation is one thing that is getting by the censorship. And whether or not it's misinformation is not, that shouldn't be an issue. We should be able to decide for ourselves based on our own research whether we believe the information we're seeing or not. That's what freedom of speech is really all about, not having the government come back and tell us we have to follow their guideline as to what we're supposed to see, know, do, or learn. That's what we're fighting here at Best Live TV. Being that we're a grassroots broadcasting station, we don't have the constraints of network television. So we have the ability to broadcast anywhere on the planet, from any location on the planet. And it just kind of gives us a little bit of carte blanche when it comes to what we want to say and how we want to present it. So we're not restricted. That's why having YouTube is great, but we're all discovering having our own real estate and being able to store our content in something that we actually own, our own domain, our own video hosting, whatever it might be. That's what's going to give us the flexibility to remain at a pace and level with any of the network broadcasters. Because we're seeing a huge shift. If you haven't noticed, there's like 69 million viewers on network television anymore, and there's almost 250 million on YouTube. That's 2/3 of the nation or more. 3/4 of the nation almost are watching YouTube over network television, which was not the case 10 years, 15, 20 years.
No. And I see a lot of the network television anchors and hosts trying to replicate what people on YouTube are doing. Like when you saw this big influx of independent journalists, just people saying, I'm doing some research, I'm going to present these
during
facts,
COVID.
here's what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And all of a sudden I see news anchors are doing like these sort of whiteboard YouTube videos. And it's like, it's not the whiteboard that people cared about. It's the content and the information.
I mean, dude, I've been around only 25 more years maybe than you have. And what I'm seeing in this world today, these past 3 years, is honestly the most mind-boggling bunch of bullshit that I've ever seen happen on this planet. And we caught on to it early, thankfully. I think if you didn't have critical thinking skills, it was very difficult because you're following the masses, and that's just how you were raised. That's how you were taught. That's what you learned, the way you continue. You can't help that with people, but thankfully I asked a lot of questions when I was young. I had people telling me, no, that's not right. No, this isn't right. No, this is wrong or whatever. And I mean that with regards to smart, wise men and women before me that said, no, you got to watch out for this. You got to watch out for this. They told me what flags to look for. And when I started to see those flags, it was like, whoa, we've got a problem here. And so we started to really lock down on the information that was coming from abroad, because I have connections all across I have connections in Southeast Asia, Pakistan, India, China, Sweden, Jerusalem, you name it. They're all over. So for me, it was a lot different situation than for most when COVID hit. We were able to kind of gather all the information into one place and say, okay, let's weigh this and see where we're really at. And that's where we found that the narrative was not correct. It was way off. It was so far off. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So we fought back through the whole process.
Yeah. Speaking of the changes and the just switches in all technology and new advancements, just recently, what was that, 6 months ago, we had Chat GPT and Midjourney kind of just throw us into this crazy technology boom that is either you get with it or you get left behind. And we're all trying to figure out, is this a piece of technology that is going to really help us? Because it can, or are we all sort of fearful for our jobs and our creative outlets of what we're doing?
I think anything new when it comes to technology is always a sandbox for people at first, because there's a huge learning curve in some things and others there's not. I don't think Chat GPT had a very large learning curve at first, which was a good thing for a lot of people. But there's also a much larger learning curve to it as well that people don't see, because you have to get into the prompt engineering and stuff to be able to do that. But yeah, we're definitely all in on AI. We're looking at it from a perspective of as enhanced assistance. We're not looking at it as means to replace people per se, though it could in some cases. I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
if you're paying somebody $8 an hour to do clerical filing in a file cabinet, you could definitely get rid of that position. That's certainly a capability of an AI bot to take care of, because as long as everything's transferred into electronic format, it can handle it. Take out physical aspects of having employees, then yes, you can replace them with AI counterparts, but you can't replace people with a bunch of eyes and or ones and zeros, let's say.
Yep.
It just doesn't work. It's because we have personalities, we have our own traits, that those are the things we bring to the table that make business worth doing, really, when it comes down to it.
Yep.
Because if all we're doing all day long is selling bots to other bots, then what's the sense in selling? We'll just let the bots do all the work.
Right.
We
Absolutely.
don't even need to be there. So I don't see that being the disruptor here. I think the disruptor is really, are you going to incorporate AI into your business model? Because if you don't, you will fall behind. You
Mhm.
will be one of those businesses that doesn't have the upper hand because their content is generated literally grammatically perfect every
Mhm.
time it's generated, though it may not always be factually correct if not done properly. You do have to watch some of both the bias and just the inability sometimes for a language learning model to come up with an answer based on what it has to work with.
Mhm.
So, it can't always come up with the perfect answer, but can it
Not yet.
shortcut? Yeah, it could very well
I
suit,
think it'll
but
get refined over time, just as all tools and
yeah,
technology
exactly.
do, you know?
And that's where we're at. We're at a point where everyone's experimenting. Everybody's trying to figure out what it is that this thing is capable of. And they're going leaps and bounds every day with what it can do. And they have found out, obviously, what it shouldn't be doing. There's already people filing lawsuits against the way it was constructed, whether it was copyright protection, infringement, all this other stuff. You took my stuff and you put it in your bot and you're telling everybody about it, kind of thing. Well, again, you signed up for the internet. That was your first mistake.
Mhm.
But anyway, it all comes down to, where does it go from here?
Mhm.
And it's only going to continue to advance. And if you're just going to poo poo AI as like it's just another fad or a craze, it's not. It's the automation of the future. It's what's going to run those things that we all dream about, or where the things run themselves and the things take this and do that. And we've been working our way toward that for a long time. And now we have a model, a language model that can do a good part of it. There's still a lot of construction that has to be done. And at
Mhm.
some point, that's going to be alleviated as well. It's just where there's already no code builders out there for this stuff. But it's, I think, going to come to the point where you could literally just talk the thing into existence, and say, I need a chat bot that can do this, 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 and this. And just, there's your chat bot. It's done, ready to go.
That piece of technology absolutely blows my mind, that you can speak or write something to a robot, to a program, and it will take those actions for you. Are you kidding me? But it's incredible to see what it can do.
Well, we talked about replacing employees.
Mm.
Okay. If in my system for my business, I run it's basically an advanced voice recording system, so that if somebody calls, I'd press 1 or 2 to get to here or there and what have you. Well, normally you would have an operator sitting at a desk in the front of your office saying, hello, this is such and such, Best Live TV. Who would you like to talk to?
Mhm.
Well, thanks to automations and AI, I have a system that does all of the call transferring, answering, all that for me. But then you think, well, who's talking on the phone to these people? Well, at first it was a text to speech thing, and it still is,
Mm.
but text to speech used to be pretty messy. It used to be hello, thank you for coming to Best Live TV. Hope you had a good day. Ha ha ha,
Very
kind of thing.
robotic.
That's
Yes.
what you got. Now these MFers breathe. They breathe on the phone with you. It's like, yeah, welcome to the Best Live TV. How can we help you today? If you would like to press 1, press 1. If you'd like to press 2, press 2. That
It's
these people sound like real people.
yes, it is absolutely crazy. And you can even train a robot to speak in your tonality.
How you speak, yes, the way
Yes.
your vernacular, yes, exactly. You
That's
train it to understand your writing style and everything else as well. And I just did this morning. I took my entire IVR system because I had rebranded. I had all of my previous brand name and all of my recordings. So if you call my IVR system now, it's up to date. I literally spent about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours tops, probably an hour and a half, just re-recording at least a dozen IVR subroutines within the system where they were human generated voices generated by AI. All I had to do was
Wow.
type the text.
Wow. What a time saver that can be. And I agree with something that you mentioned before, that within business, there is still always going to be that human element
Oh,
for us as people, as human beings, to connect with each other on that level. But what can we make, just as computers and software have unlocked our potential? How can we allow AI and automation to do something similar for us without making us feel like we're useless or we're dumb? Just in the same way the internet came out, did it make us smarter because we have access to all this information now and we can utilize it? Or because we don't need to know it, that we just think like someone else knows it, that's fine, don't worry about it. But that's just the way of technology.
I'm having the same response I had because I can go back to that time when the internet first existed. I
Yeah,
hate to say it,
yeah.
but I'm kind of feeling the same way I did then. It was like this awe and shock and awe and inspiring type of thing that was going on in the world. All we saw was this Google prompt. It was like, fuck is that?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what that is. What do we do with it? We just type stuff and stuff shows up. Okay, sure. We'll type something and see what happens, And of
Uh-huh.
course, the first thing is, do you fart and all that stuff. You just
Uh-huh.
ask it stupid questions to see what it does. And so same thing with AI now. We're just asking it stupid questions to
Mhm.
see how it responds and what it does. And, I think the biggest fear people have is they don't know what it's capable of.
Mhm.
And they keep being fear-mongered by a lot of what's going on. And I don't blame the people who designed it for doing that, really,
Mhm.
because there should be warning labels all over this shit. There really
Mhm.
should. Comes down to the fact that what if you give it too much power? What if you give it too much control? What if you allow it to handle things that it really shouldn't be handling? You know, first thought, it's just minor stuff, fire suppression systems, alarm systems, okay, nuclear warheads, all that kind of shit. Even banking, when you think about it, the
Yeah.
banking industry has been run by Aladdin for 20 years. That is the AI monster elephant in the room. Okay. It's
Mhm.
always been there. We don't think about it because all we think about are bank branches and bank names,
Mhm.
but everything is run by a monstrous AI construction. That's all it is. That's doing
Mhm.
all the trading, all the moving of money around the planet, because no individual can do that mechanically.
Not at that
And
pace, no
you
way.
just can't. It has to be done by computers. So they developed an AI years ago that was capable of doing it. And now that technology obviously is finally trickling down to the little guys like us,
Mhm.
though through other sources, thanks to innovators and open source. If it weren't for that alone, we'd all be locked into OpenAI or Microsoft or whoever else Google takes, first step.
Mhm.
We've already seen all the duplications that have been done by Facebook. We got threads coming out now. It's just a
Uh-huh.
duplication of Twitter. It's nothing. It's not a new thing.
Mhm.
It's just another old thing. So everybody jumped on the bandwagon. Now they realize they can't get rid of threads without deleting their Instagram accounts.
They can't. Yeah, yeah. One small thing in the fine print changes
Yeah.
everything. And in addition, Meta is really promoting themselves as, oh, we were the fastest growing and we got the fastest to 100 million. It's like, well, people can't leave. If you're like, hey, come to this music venue and everyone came inside and you couldn't get out, you're like, look, we have the largest crowd attendance ever. It's like, but how did you
It's a
achieve
good
that?
analogy. I like that. Come to this concert and hang out with it. Sorry, you can't go home.
You can't
We're going to
leave.
run out of beer in a few weeks, but I don't want to go to that concert.
No, no way. Absolutely. But you're right. Just the way that technology evolves, it's up to us to decide, all right, how can we benefit from this? What are the limitations? What are the concerns that we should be worried about going into this? And make sure that we have this right balance of power, that we're not giving it too much information. And again, just use it to our benefit, make our lives better and easier.
I think it's a little too late for giving it too much information because I'm pretty sure all the big corporations have scraped the planet of everything they can possibly get their hands on and bored into it. But I can't say for sure. All
Hmm.
I know is we have to stop burying the tech and using it to our advantage, because we've been given a big set of keys here. This is
Mhm.
not like, again, a lot of people are comparing to the first day the internet took off, and it's a good comparison.
Mhm.
It's not really the same, but it's very much in line with the principle behind it.
Mhm.
So yeah, just use it. And there's so many tools out there that are available for free that people don't have to pay for, that can get started and just play with it. You just go open a chat GPT account on OpenAI and start typing. That's all you got to do. And come watch us. We're trying to show people how to do it every day.
And where can people find you to watch that and learn more about you and what you're doing?
Well, we run a company known as Best Studios LLC. If you call me on my line at 888-365-7060, that's the name you're going to hear, which is the umbrella for a couple of my other companies as well, Best Live TV being one of those. So if you want to get in touch with us and talk AI or video production or our Smile TV program, you can reach out to us at mail@Best Live TV.
That is wonderful. Do you mind sharing a little bit about the Smile TV program and how it can help business owners and entrepreneurs?
Sure. We've managed through the years to establish a process when it comes to creating content for those who might need to develop content for their social media ventures. And that is through a simple interview process, which is what Smile TV represents. It's a large acronym for strategic marketing interviews that engage through transcribed video. And in doing that, we sit down with the customer for an hour at a time, sometimes two in a month, and that allows us to create at least an hour or two worth of content that we then break down into long form, short form, text based content as well. And some memes, some audio, what we call audiograms, which are kind of like just audio and some waveform animations on top of that, so that the message gets delivered with some text on the screen and this little pattern of waves to show the person talking. But yeah, we basically create a package of creatives. We're not here to be your social media managers. We work hand in hand with those if you have one already. And if you don't have one, we can certainly point you in the right direction. We're just here to develop good quality content through the means similar to what you're doing here with a Zoom interview with me. We allow people to come in, bring their branded equipment, prepare an entire suite. Or if they want to do a show, we also produce pretty much network quality television shows for people that want to get their word out.
Wow, that's incredible. And I feel like that's such an in demand service for a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners to build the like, know, and trust around themselves or their brand. Because a
Yep.
lot of people are trying to get out there as an authority figure. They want to showcase their knowledge, showcase their brand. But a lot of them either don't have the time or they're not sure what's the best strategy for me to get out there. But what I like about your program is you condense it down into what's the bare minimum that we need to do is this hour-long video interview that gets chopped up into multiple pieces of content. You can create an entire monthly
Oh,
strategy of content around this. But again, it highlights the entrepreneur, the business, the brand, and builds that like, know, and trust, positions you as an authority leader, which I think is fantastic.
yeah, and you can kind of experience that just by listening to this interview. We've covered a lot of various topics in this discussion, and each of those little segments and pieces can be taken apart, put somewhere else.
I've got like 30 YouTube short ideas and TikToks that I can create just from this. Literally
Oh, for sure.
just
Absolutely.
it's fantastic. Well, we're almost
Name of the game.
nearing the end of our show here, Leland. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the viewers or listeners out there?
Wow. Open-ended discussion. These are always the tricky parts of the interview, aren't they? No, honestly, I mean, at Best Live TV, I've been doing a series of broadcasts on Wednesday at noon Eastern over at Leland Best Live, which is where I typically broadcast my interview show. And we've been handling a series of broadcasts for the last 10 episodes now, I think, called What's Your Problem? And what we're doing is I'm allowing my network, which is probably all told over 10,000, which isn't a lot for when you consider subscribers, but that's not the case. Is that most of my followers are worldwide. So I have people that are professionals in a lot of different areas, and I'm allowing them on their word to help others in my network. If they have a problem, we bring it to the table, we draw it out, we see what it's all about. And then we put it on air so that if there's somebody out there that might be able to help or answer that question, or two, three that the people have during the broadcast. If I can't solve it, maybe someone else can. So we're
That's
going to
brilliant.
continue. we'll continue that series for a little bit and see how it does. We haven't had a lot of feedback from it, but we hope to in the near future. If we just keep it going, maybe people will catch on to it and it'll roll with the punches. Who knows?
That's fantastic. That's wonderful. And where can people find the What's Your Problem live video podcast you do?
We are going through the process of updating a lot of stuff with the rebranding that we've gone through. So honestly, the best place to probably find me right now is at Leland Best Live, both on Facebook and YouTube. But we will be moving a lot of the content from the Leland Best Live interviews, I suspect, over to Best Live TV 1, which is at YouTube. We couldn't get the Best Live TV signal. Somebody grabbed that. I think it was like 18 years ago and never used the account and is starting to use it again. It's some Japanese guy that's doing game videos or something on Best Live TV. So Best Live TV 1 over at YouTube, but we will be posting. That's a brand new site. We just put our intro, outro trailers up there. So that's all the video content that's on that page right now. We will be adding a lot of viral content from the internet, just stuff that we haven't produced ourselves that we think others might want to see. And some of our own stuff as well, teaching people how to live stream across the internet.
That's great. Wonderful. Leland, thank you so much for joining me. For anyone out there interested in learning more about technology, tools, AI, automation, audio, visual, Leland is your guy. Find him on Facebook, on YouTube. We'll make sure to have you on when we find some more leaps and bounds in more technology, and we can highlight and talk more about that. Leland, thank you again for joining me. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure, dude. Anytime.
Thanks so much.
See you on the other side, I'm sure, because we've got to have something to do.
Let's get to work.
All right. You have a good one, dude.
You as well.
For having me.
Thank you.